I give a fuck? Why do I give a fuck? Why do I try so hard? Why do I care so much?
Welcome to Why Do I Give a Fuck? A cross-cultural conversation between myself, Diane Tate,
and Johanna Thompson. In these times of great struggle and possible shift, we ask ourselves,
why do we give a fuck about any of it? How does the lens we see the world through impact what we see?
And what do we do about it?
Hello, my friend.
How are you?
Happy
Good
New
to see you
Year.
again. We've been spending lots of time together, so.
that year is over. Goodbye,
Yeah.
2025.
Yay, 2026.
Yay, 2026. New possibilities.
Absolutely.
Let's hope. Fingers crossed. All the crossables. Lord have mercy. So it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
So we thought we would kick off this new year because we're just hoping that this new year is going to have some life in it and some happiness and maybe some joy and some intrigue. And well, I'm sure it'll have plenty of intrigue. We've had enough of that, but I thought we would kick off this new year with a movie talk. We haven't done a movie talk in a minute.
And that's so appropriate because like during the holidays, that's one of the things that I like to do is just sit around with my young people and watch all kinds of different movies and shows and laugh and yell at the TV.
Yeah.
So one of those opportunities was this movie that you introduced me to watch and listen to.
So so my now husband, Brian, said, I found a movie. He's always looking for movies for us to watch because both of us have been big movie watchers in our past lives. And so we've seen pretty much everything. And so he's always looking. He's like, I found a movie for us to watch that neither one of us has seen. And he said, so we got to watch this one together. So we watched it together. It's called They Cloned Tyrone, and it stars Jamie Foxx is one of the lead actors in the movie, and big ups to Jamie Foxx. He was amazing in this, as always. So he did play the role. He did. So we watched it, and as soon as it was over, I said, Jay and I have to talk about this one. So I told you about it and encouraged you to watch it. And so today we're going to have our movie talk about it. So
we're going to have a movie talk. That's perfect.
Yeah. So I guess maybe...
Yeah. What's the thing that you loved about They Cloned Tyrone? What are some of the themes, what are some of the things that came up for you with the movie?
Well, it's interesting because the movie is set, I guess maybe we should give some context for folks that haven't seen it. So it's on Netflix. So we encourage you to watch it if you have access to that. I don't know if you can see it on YouTube or not. So that might be another option for those that might not have Netflix. But it starts off, it's a movie that to me gives a feel of today's time, but maybe even a little bit back. It's kind of got a gritty, the way it's filmed. I like to see the choices that directors and cinematographers make when they put movies together. And it has this gritty kind of feel to it for me. It's not a polished look. And it almost harkens back to an older kind of TV show. The credits, the font that they use is kind of old school, and
did you ever watch any of the, I have to stop you for a second. Did you ever watch any of the Black exploitation movies? Blaxploitation? So that
you might need to
directed in that.
Oh,
thing.
Okay.
That's Brian.
Okay. Okay, I will. Well, can you give me an idea of what you're talking about when you say Black exploitation?
Yeah, so Blaxploitation movies came out in the 70s.
Okay.
And so I loved watching those movies in college and things like that. So much fun. I had one partner and we literally had the biggest collection. And when we broke up, that was like the one thing that we're like, who's getting the Blaxploitation?
Oh no.
Like Crossing 110th Street, the Mac. This is where you have Foxy Brown and all of those.
Okay.
So it's made like kind of I felt the directing of They Cloned Tyrone was definitely that. And you also had the same type of caricatures. So you had the drug dealer, you had the pimp, you had the prostitute.
Right.
All of those are like are what do you call it? typecast narrative
Oh,
people
yeah.
in all of those movies. 100%. They
Okay.
always had
Okay.
those characters in the movies,
Okay.
and it was always set in Black community, same way
Mhm.
that They
Yep.
Cloned Tyrone was set in Black community. And I think that they did, well, I know that they did that intentionally because
Mhm.
they're speaking to the narratives and stereotypical conversations about who exists in Black community. And yeah, it's a hyper generalization, but also kind of a true depiction of what's happening in the community. And so
Yeah.
it's really important because They Clone Tyrone is really dissecting these stereotypical narratives that we're used to
Yes.
seeing in Blaxploitation.
Yes, that's very apparent throughout the beginning of it, that the themes and the tropes that they're pushing are all very common tropes that we see
Mhm.
in the film industry when it comes to what's happening in the Black community. And then so you have Jamie Foxx's character. Jamie Foxx plays a pimp, Slick, and then the other main character that we see, in his character's name is Fontaine, and he's a drug dealer. And so the movie opens with kind of a day in the life. They call their area, their community, the Glen. And I think is it Chicago, or is it, I can't
I don't know
remember the
what city.
city.
It's
They may
every
not have
Black
mentioned.
city
Yeah, I
in New York.
know. They may not have mentioned the main city. I mean, towards the end they
Mhm.
talk about LA, which is another city that, but yeah, they may not have mentioned the city, but they call the community the Glen. And so you see all of these things happening, drug dealers fighting with each other over territory, shootings, the young kid who's the friend of the drug dealer, who's, being giving him information about what's happening in the community. And I see you smiling at me. Is this a classic white rundown of a movie like this? I'm curious. Just by looking at your face. I
So
should not be the one that's laying
truth be
this down.
told,
Yeah. I can see
no,
that smile. I know what
I
that
mean,
smile means. I know what that smile means. So I'm
I,
gonna shut up and let you talk.
I love hearing the explanation of it though, right? And so because I'm getting a perspective as to how you're receiving the
Mm-hmm.
movie. You didn't want to say snitch on the little boy. I'm curious as to why you like stopped
Right. I
yourself
did.
from
Yeah.
saying it. But
Yeah.
he was being a snitch. He was a little boy informer in the
Yeah. He
community.
was an
He
informer.
was being paid to be an informer because he wanted to, like, his role model was the drug dealer.
Right.
And so that's real. Like, so yeah, he was being a little
Well, I
snitch.
think that's why I stopped from saying snitch, because he was doing what he was asked to do. It
He
wasn't.
was snitching. He was asked to snitch.
Yeah, but I guess I think of snitches as
Call it
people
what
who
it is.
are. Yeah, I think I attribute the word snitch to being somebody who's stepping out of a boundary to tell on something instead of doing something that somebody's asking them to do. So I don't know. Six of
Yeah,
one,
he
half
was
dozen the
asking to
other,
do,
but
but the young person wanted to do it, so he was
oh
stepping out the
yeah, oh
boundary.
yeah,
He like
yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
do it, and he, like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I think that's why I corrected myself on snitch, because to me he was performing a job. He was doing what
yeah.
Fontaine asked him to do, which was be his eyes and ears in the neighborhood. So anyway, yeah. I now I'm feeling
And that was
self-conscious and I want you to
and that
pick up
was
and start talking about it.
and that was no. We're not doing that. We are not doing
No.
the white cop out. Manola stop. That is not happening. Bring it back, because this is the beautiful thing about art, right? Is that it
Mhm.
really does challenge how it is that we come into something. And let me offer you some ease. Let me play good Negro right now. Is that this is
Oh,
like
you
this
don't
was
have
really
to.
built in Blaxploitation. So
Yeah, yeah.
it like hyper generalized
Right.
narratives in Black communities. And not to say that there's not drug dealers in Black communities. There's also drug dealers in white communities. There's also drug
Oh,
dealers in
yes.
Asian communities. So like the drug dealer, this could have this if it wasn't made as a Blaxploitation type movie, it could be attributed to any community, because we're really talking about the larger narrative of how people are programming these narratives into our
Yes.
communities. And what I really appreciated about the Glen, that they also kind of like juxtapose this Nancy Drew situation that's
I
happening.
know. I thought
So
that was great.
I absolutely loved it. And I hope that we're making sense for like two people who watched the movie and like laying down the context of what is happening in this movie to folks who are listening and or watching with us.
Well, and actually that brings up a
You're
point.
really good at doing that, so I really do want you to lay out.
Yeah, okay. Um, Well, and that actually brings up a point that I want to say. Should have said at the very top. Spoiler alert: we are going to spoil things if you watch this. So, if you would rather watch the movie without the details that might spoil it for you, then
Come back to this.
I'd come back to this. Pause us and go watch the movie, and then come back. But so I feel like I need to say that out loud because we do need to talk about the elements of the movie that were the elements of the movie for you to understand why this was an important movie. And I have to share, backing up a little bit, because now I've watched it twice. I rewatched it in anticipation of this conversation because it had been a minute since I'd seen it and I wanted to make sure that it was fresh in my mind. When I watched it the first time, I got irritated in the beginning because of the black exploitation, because of the norms and the tropes. When Brian and I watch movies like that before, there have been times where I've been like, turn it off. I can't, I cannot, I'm not going to watch this because it irritates me because it's just so like the Friday movies. So we watched the first Friday movie and I thought that was a balance of tropes, but not necessarily, it was full of tropes, but it wasn't, I don't know. It didn't feel,
It's a comedy.
It felt like, it's a comedy, and it felt like it was in essence to the storytelling. So it didn't feel exploitive to me, even though it was on many levels because of the tropes. But when we tried to watch the second Friday movie, and I got 5 minutes into it, I said, I can't do this. It felt like it was all making fun, and he felt it too. He was like, you know what, we don't need to watch this, and we turned it off. So I wanted to offer that because I did have a very different. When I went into seeing it the second time, it was all about taking notes and making sure that I remember all the things that came up for me in the first time. But yeah, the first time we watched it in the beginning, and I think he'd already seen it, or he's like, let's just keep watching. I think it's going to get interesting. And so
I got to interject for a second though.
Yes.
Let's just keep watching it. Because when you told me to watch this movie, I had to put it on 3 times before I could sit through it.
Yeah.
I had the same responsiveness. As soon as I put it on and I started watching, I was like,
why are we watching this?
Ask me to watch this movie. Am I gonna have to pull Diane aside a little bit and be like, girl, how are you guys watching these narratives, and why would you ask me to watch this movie? I'm feeling a way about this. I really was. I was like, and then I turned it off. I totally get that. And I came back to it, and then I turned it off, and I'm like, no, there is a reason. I trust my friend. There is a reason why she told me to watch this movie. So one late at night when I can't sleep, I was like, all right, I'm going to let this roll. And I let it roll and kind of ignored all of the first parts about it until the moment when the main character has that awakening where he's just like, what is this? So I don't want to spoil that, but that is what made me click into, okay, good. This is something different than the typical narratives that they speak about in Black communities when they're doing Blaxploitation. Because I wasn't ready to watch another Blaxploitation. I have to be in the mood for that. Right. I want to hear the music and be in that kind of like slick culture of it. And I wasn't getting that just yet at the beginning of They Cloned Tyrone. So if anybody is going to watch it, and I was telling my young people that as well, you got to get through that first half hour of all of the things that punch for me as a Black identified person, and clearly for you as well, who's aware, that punch you in the face. If you are a person that watches it and in the first hour or first half hour to 45 minutes of that movie, you're like, yep, that's what I thought, you need to check in. You are the person that really needs to check in. Continue watching the movie, but you also need to check in with yourself. I'm just going to say that.
Well, and that's a beautiful thing about the movie, I feel like, is that because of the way it lays out, the characters that, like you said, like the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie is very typical, tropey, stereotypical hood kind of depiction, very harmful. And so, but then the main character, Fontaine, again, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know, pause this right now. I'm going to give you a minute to do it.
I'm awakening.
Okay. Now you're dealing with it. He gets shot. And then he wakes up in the morning as if he's had a nightmare, and he's feeling himself all over and, oh man, that was real. That felt so real. So then he gets up and he starts his day and he goes out into the world, and you notice that he's doing the same thing that you saw him do in the first 20 minutes. He goes to he goes to like a convenience store and buys a scratch off. He comes out of the convenience store, he scratches it, doesn't win anything, throws it down. He goes and checks in with an elder who is sitting out in front of the grocery store or the convenience store. He's drinking. He's an elder who maybe spends a lot of time in the bottle, and they share a little bit of drink with each other. And so as a watcher, I'm watching this going, wait a minute, he's already done all of these things, but he's wearing a different outfit. That's always for me. That's like, but he's wearing a different shirt. But haven't I already seen him do this? And so there's an awareness in my head of, we're seeing something repeat, and why are we seeing it repeat? We don't know right now why we're seeing it. And then he is sitting there and he's drinking, he's looking down the street, and he sees somebody staggering through the street. And they're so far away that you don't really know who they are at first. And then I noticed the outfit. I don't know what it is about me and clothes, but I noticed the outfit and I thought, wait a minute, that's what he was wearing when he got shot. And the person is staggering as if they've been shot. And so Fontaine is seeing this and he's kind of cluing in, and he's kind of like, wait a minute. And then this black SUV comes screaming down the street, cuts in front of the staggering person that's coming down, because they're still so far away that you're not really sure. Cuts in front of, so you can't see that person anymore, pauses for a minute, and then screeches off. And the person who was wandering down the street is no longer there. Right. It's a kidnapping. And that's what Fontaine is like, wait a minute, what happened? And then I'm sitting here blanking on like how he comes to the realization again going forward. So I don't know if you remember, but anyway, comes to find out that was actually him staggering down the street after being shot, which is what we saw in the first 20 minutes. And he realizes, wait a minute, what the actual fuck is going on?
Hence the title of the movie.
Yes.
So the title of the movie in and of itself kind of like is the spoiler alert. Right?
Yeah.
We know that Tyrone is getting cloned.
Yeah.
And we are looking at whom in this community of the Glen is getting cloned.
Right.
It's not just Tyrone.
Right.
It's a archetype of human that is getting cloned in for the purposefulness of the plan. Yeah.
Oh, I just remembered how he figured it out. Yeah. So he goes to his friend Slick, who's Jamie Foxx's character, and a woman named Yo-Yo. The character's name is Yo-Yo, who's one of the prostitutes that works for Slick. They saw him shot the night before. So he ends up going to see them because he's in the routine that he was in that we saw in the first 20 minutes. And he ends up seeing them and they freak out because they're like, wait a minute, we just saw you get shot the night before. And that's when the realization starts to happen that something's not right.
Right.
And they end up going to look for this black SUV, and they find it in front of a house. They go into the house that they're thinking is a trap house. And it's like, furnished, fully furnished.
Is a drug house.
Yes, a drug house, right. They're using the term trap house as a drug house. But then they keep walking through it with guns drawn and they're ready for anything. And they come into this space that looks like a break room, like you would find in any office with a TV and all of that. And then in the closet, they find an elevator. So this is a house in the middle of whatever city is being depicted. And in this closet is a steel elevator. So they go down the elevator and they come into a laboratory, and the person that's working in the laboratory, there's only one human in there, and they're listening to music and they're doing their, they're dancing and having a good old time, have no clue that anybody has walked into their space, didn't expect anybody to.
And there's a particular archetype of person that is in this.
Yes. What did you see? What was your first thought when you saw that human, when you came into that space and saw that human?
The way that I would identify them is a male identified mixed race human with an afro.
Yeah, so he's got his back to us when they first come off the elevator. He's got his back to them. He's got a white lab coat on, and the first thing I noticed was the afro. So it's like, okay, this must be a black identified human. Then he turns around, and he's very clearly either mixed race or even lighter than that. And the juxtaposition of his skin tone versus the
Tell me
afro
what you
was,
saw then. So, I mean, you saw, did you think that the person was white with an afro, or did you think they were,
yeah,
oh, you thought it
yeah.
was a white man with an afro?
I thought it was I thought he was even I noticed that he was even more light skinned than I expected him to be as a biracial person with the afro. So it struck me as it didn't make there was a juxtaposition that didn't make a lot of sense in my mind. So yeah, I had a moment. So tell me about what's going on. See your face.
I'm confused. I'm confused because I would have seen the person as a mixed race, and only
Mhm.
because of their hair. So hair is a identity
Right.
for me. So like anybody with coarser hair, but I understand that there's people in Greece that have very thick hair that can come out as an afro. I know that there's people in Italy. I know that there's people, you know, all across the African continent that have thick hair, but I would never ascribe whiteness to them, regardless of the hue, like how much melanin they have in their skin, just because of their hair. So
Right. And I that's why I was confused because I don't know that maybe I have not come across or met a human of biracial identity that had that particular hue of skin and still wore an afro. I mean, I don't know. You know, I'm questioning to myself, and I don't have the answer as to
mhm.
why that struck me as odd. And when he turned around, I thought, and I think I said it out loud. I have to ask Brian, but I think is he white? I was
Mhm.
just like, it struck me as
Right.
odd.
Mhm.
Because I was expecting, because I saw the hair, I was expecting one thing, and then when he turned
What
around,
did
I saw
Brian
something
say?
different.
Did Brian say it was white?
He was confused too. He was like, I don't know. He looks like a white dude, but that's an afro. So yeah, there was a confusion around it because he didn't. It wasn't what I expected when he turned around.
Mhm.
Um, and
And it's so
so
funny how us from the US that we are literally dissecting this. Because if you're
yeah,
in other places, this dissection would, I don't know if that archetype character would matter. I would love to see that from other countries, how those people,
yeah, me
because the
too.
diaspora of color, like when actually when the guy turned around, he looked like my little brother. That's why I said a mixed race person with an afro.
Okay,
Because my
okay.
little brother is creamy. My one of my daughters is white skinned.
Mm,
And my little brother, he is of mixed ethnicity. And so he looked
mm-hmm.
like the guy to me, exactly
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the guy. So I was like,
I,
that's a straight brother with an afro.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we just assume once we asked the question out loud, we were like, well, he must be mixed. I mean, he must be biracial. I couldn't, yeah. And then we just moved on. And then it was later on in the movie that I started to notice the recurring theme of the people with black identified hairstyles, but with much lighter skin tone. And I was like, okay, that's a choice. So
Mhm.
clearly, and I'm always in my head going, why is what message is the director trying to, or the screenwriter is trying to send for making these choices of actors to be portraying these particular spaces? So
Mhm.
yeah, that was something that was definitely going through
Yeah,
our minds as
it's
we
a part of
watched.
it because
It
I
is a
mean
part of it, yeah.
we're having a critical conversation, particularly about this character.
Hmm.
As we talk about, like in our other episodes, decolonization, if we talk about capitalism, white supremacy, and all of that leads to like the proximity to whiteness. Like
Right.
in this conversation about this global conversation about anti-blackness, it's like who can keep their authenticity but get
Hmm.
closest to their whiteness, to their
Right.
white
Right.
identity. And that happens in real life where like um, people of non-white communities throughout history have married into and or procreated with people who are white or whatever to
Hmm.
like lighten the race. What
Hmm.
I find interesting about change being the only thing that's constant is that there's a narrative conversation now about more people recognizing the power of melanated people and wanting to marry into them, like yeah, like kind of like these undercover conversations about like Ashkenazi folks wanting to have Black DNA, and so marrying Black women and making the babies and that kind of stuff, because recognizing that, the origins part of the DNA,
Yeah.
out of Africa.
Well,
And there's a
Black
diaspora
man.
of people. People have to understand that, like, there literally is a diaspora of melanin across, African DNA.
Right, right. So in the interest of time, I want to fast forward a little bit because I want to get to meat of the movie in terms of like what we find out. So as you can see by the title, They Cloned Tyrone, there are shenanigans that ensue in terms of these three main characters trying to figure out what the hell is going on.
Mhm.
And they end up down in a or they end up finding out that there is this underground machine mechanism happening, obviously led by all white people, trying to that are cloning characters from this community, because as they get killed, they just put another one out, and they take their memories. They take the memories from the human that gets killed and put them all into the clone. So the clone has, or at least a selected amount of the memories. So the clone has enough memories of that person to go back out on the street and continue to perpetuate the story, because it's really a research lab. The Glen is a research project, and white people are watching from this bunker space below the Glen and they're taking notes. They're doing experiments on how music impacts Black people, in terms of, if I played this song, they try to kill each other. If I play this song, they hug each other. So we see when the main characters finally get down into this underground system and they're wandering around, they knock out three humans that have these kind of hazmat looking suits on. So their identities are obscured, and they steal their suits so that they can walk around and not be noticed, so that they can blend in. And they're seeing all these different exercises and experiments that are happening in these different spaces. And one of the things they realize is that there is a chemical that is being put. They've actually got this from that lab. The first time they went down in that elevator, there's a chemical that's being put in chicken. There's a particular chicken franchise that they're putting this chemical into, and it is sorry, the chicken. Yeah,
it's in the chicken.
It's in the chicken, and it's it has an effect of making them all laugh, making them all happy, and not necessarily paying attention to what's happening around them. So there's a mind control aspect to that. They also identified that the chemical is being put into hair products, and straighteners and colorings and things like that. And then also in, let's see, the hair products, the music. Well, I got to look at my notes, because I wrote it all down. So it's music, hair products,
toxins in the food, the hair products,
grape juice. Grape juice is the other one.
Well, disrupting faith is the way that I attributed it.
Okay.
The grape juice is like was a part of the service, the church service.
Right.
And they were drinking the blood of Jesus, and it had this,
and it has the impact. Right, right. And at one point, the main elevator to get down to this underground research space is in a church, which I also think is, was intentional. All of every choice in this was just so brilliantly laid out. So in the chicken, the hair products, the grape juice, church, the music, and the strip club,
psychology.
Yep. So it's all about mind control. And then the other thing I thought was interesting is they have a confrontation at one point with, they go through a strip club, and the DJ is another one of these humans that looks very light skinned, but has Black, identifying hair. And he starts playing a song that makes everybody kind of go into a trance, but it doesn't impact our main characters as they're moving through the strip club. So as they leave the strip club, the rest of the people that are in the strip club that are kind of under the mind control, they leave the strip club to chase after our three main characters. And then that all stops because one of the white identified research humans comes in, and he's played by Kiefer Sutherland, which I think is hilarious. And he starts to kind of bring it all together, and we understand the depth of the mind control, the depth of the research. He's making it all a joke. He's like, oh, we're just trying to keep you safe. That was the thing that I thought was so interesting, was the narrative spinning, the white person coming in and spinning a narrative of, we're just trying to keep you safe. We're just trying to make the world a more peaceful place. And, and y'all are a part of all of this. And don't you feel wonderful because you're a part of making the world a more peaceful place by assimilation. And, so I don't know. I don't want to keep taking up all the space. So do you have any thoughts about I feel like I'm just going on and on and on. There's so much in this movie to talk about.
There is so much. I'm curious if we pause and then do a part 2 because I have so much to say about it.
I know. I bet you do. So maybe we should. We're at the 30-minute mark, so maybe we should pause and come back to do a part 2. Yeah, and where I talk less and you talk more, because
let's do it.
I'm very aware of taking up space, and I feel like I've done that. But there's so much in this movie that it's every single decision that was made to create this movie was really brilliant, I think, in terms of the messaging. So we're going to pause and we're going to invite everybody to come back for part 2.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me blather on, and we will see you all in the next episode.
They cloned Tyrone.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, as you move throughout your day, continue to ask yourself,
Why Do I Give a Fuck is produced in collaboration with Johanna and Diane. Music by Norwegian musician Water. See you next time.